And when we start talking about the New World Order, we're talking about these Khazar warriors that only pretended to embrace Judaism. And so today, we find that about 92% of the people who claim to be Jews really aren't. They don't have a drop of Semitic blood in their veins. They don't have a drop of Semitic blood in their veins. They don't have a drop of Semitic blood in their veins.
The fall of Atil did not mark the complete disappearance of the Khazars. While their empire had crumbled, various sources tell us of surviving Khazar communities throughout their former territories. Al-Muqaddasi describes a region beyond the Caspian Sea where Khazar Jews still lived, albeit in diminished circumstances, maintaining sheep herds and honey production. Much later, the Jewish German traveler Pethahiah of Regensburg, who journeyed through the Crimea in the 1170s and later traveled as far as Egypt and Seljuk Turkish Iran, describes meeting people who followed Jewish customs but maintained distinct traditions unknown to other Jewish communities. His account suggests that these communities preserved elements of both their Jewish faith and their Turkic heritage. An intriguing episode occurs in 1016 when Byzantine sources tell us of a ruler named Georgius Tsul. His Christian name suggests the religious diversity that persisted among the Khazar elite. After his defeat by a joint Rus-Byzantine force, another Khazar ruler named Sennacherib in Upper Media, so South Azerbaijan, was forced to sue for peace. The Khazars continued to play a role in regional politics even after their empire's fall. In 1024, we find them fighting alongside Mstislav of Chernigov in his attempt to seize Kiev. By the 1080s, the Rus prince Oleg Sviatoslavich still claimed the title Archon of Khazaria, suggesting that the concept of Khazar territory retained some political significance. However, references to the Khazars largely disappear from historical records by the 12th century. By the 13th century, they survived in Russian folklore only as Jewish heroes in the Zemlya Zhidovskaya, the land of the Jews. Their population had been largely absorbed into the successor peoples of the steppes, leaving behind only scattered place names and cultural memories. But where did the people of Khazaria really go? Did they just disappear all of a sudden? Were they really assimilated by new powers? The question of Khazar legacy extends far beyond mere cultural influence. A wealth of evidence suggests that significant portions of Eastern European Jewry may actually trace their ancestry to the Khazar realm. This connection, while controversial, is supported by multiple lines of evidence that deserve careful consideration. Consider first the demographic puzzle that historians have long grappled with: the sudden appearance of large Jewish populations in Eastern Europe during the 11th and 12th centuries. The Hungarian chronicler Simon of Keza, writing in the 13th century, noted that many Jews arrived in Hungary from a country called Khazaria. The numbers involved are particularly telling, because while Western European Jewish communities grew gradually over centuries, Eastern European Jewish communities seem to appear rapidly, and in regions that coincidentally either overlapped with former Khazar territories and trade routes or were situated near the Khazar periphery. The evidence extends beyond demographics. The Cairo-Geniza documents reveal differences between Western and Eastern European Jewish commercial practices. Eastern European Jewish merchants operated along the very same trade routes that had been the lifelines of the Khazar Empire, using commercial terms and practices that differed from their Western counterparts. The 12th century traveler Benjamin of Tudela noted distinct customs among Eastern European Jews that he found foreign to both Sephardic and Western European traditions. Centuries later, the question of Khazar ancestry among Eastern European Jews appeared on a larger scale. Taking various arguments into account, it is perhaps best to let those speak who were themselves of Jewish descent. Like Abraham Furkovich, a rabbi active in modern-day Ukraine. He proclaimed that the members of his Turkic-speaking sect were descended from Turkic converts to Judaism. Furkovich belonged to the Karaites of Crimea, a small group of Judaic people who spoke and still speak Turkic languages. By the 19th century, they began to distinguish themselves from other Jewish groups, sending envoys to the Russian rulers to plead for exemptions from harsh anti-Jewish legislation. Successfully, they were granted the same rights as their Christian and pagan Tatar neighbors. Later, they were considered non-Jews by the Nazi invaders. This left the Karaites untouched by the horrors of World War II, unlike other Turkic-speaking Jews like the Krimchak that were almost wiped out. The Karaite situation was picked up by Ernest Renan and others in the late 19th century, which initiated controversial debates among European intellectual elites in the early 20th century, on the eve of World War II and the extermination of most European Jews. After the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, discussions picked up again. The most prominent and important post-war advocate of the so-called Khazar hypothesis was Arthur Koestler, an Austro-Hungarian author born into a Jewish family. He proposed that after the conversion of the Khazar Empire, the Khazars time and time again westwards into Eastern Europe, with the largest wave of migrants arriving after the destruction of the state in the 11th century. Another notable author is Shlomo Sand. He published his book, The Invention of the Jewish People, in which he also proclaimed that Ashkenazi Jews in Europe were directly descended from Khazars. While Shlomo Sand is a self-proclaimed anti-Zionist and thus opposed to the idea of a Jewish nation in the form of Israel, Arthur Koestler's book was also panned by critics. In general, the Khazar hypothesis has been criticized for decades. One of the main arguments against this theory is that DNA analysis would disprove a Khazar ancestry of Ashkenazi Jews. This, however, is not entirely true. There are various genetic studies of Jewish peoples that paint a more nuanced picture. According to a study from 2004, 35% to 43% of Jewish men are in the paternal line known as haplogroup J. This very haplogroup is particularly present in the Middle East and the Caucasus, the former base of the Khazar Empire. A 2003 study of the Y chromosome pointed to multiple origins for Ashkenazi Levites, a priestly class who comprise approximately 4% of Ashkenazi Jews. It found that haplogroup R1A1A, which is uncommon in the Middle East but dominant in Eastern Europe, is present in over 50% of Ashkenazi Levite. The study thus suggested a founding event involving very few European men, occurring at a time close to the initial formation and settlement of the Ashkenazi community as a possible explanation. This may indicate a Khazar origin, with a few Khazars moving into Eastern European communities, settling there, intermixing, and founding new families. Kevin Allen Brooke, who wrote numerous articles and a very concise book about the Khazars, found the following. In a 2022 article, he pinpointed the Ashkenazic branch of N9A3 as the daughter subclade of a variety found among Bashkirs, an Oghuric Turkic people of the Ural region and distant relatives of Magyars and Huns, and proposes that the former could come from a Khazar woman. In a 2009 study, 4 Jewish groups, Ashkenazi, Turkish, Moroccan, and Tunisian, were compared. The researchers found genetic similarities, especially between Ashkenazi Jews and the Circassians, a group from the Caucasus, again, the very region inhabited by the Khazars for centuries. One of the most important contemporary proponents of the Khazar hypothesis is the American-Israeli researcher Aaron El-Hayek. In a 2012 study, he concluded the following. Strong evidence for the Khazar hypothesis is the clustering of European Jews with the populations that, in his opinion, resided on opposite ends of ancient Khazaria, Armenians, Georgians, and Azerbaijani Jews. Because Caucasus populations remained relatively isolated in the Caucasus region, and because there are no records of Caucasus populations mass migrating to Eastern and Central Europe prior to the fall of Khazaria, these findings imply a shared origin for European Jews and Caucasus populations.
Someone's story of origin matters a lot, and it dictates the way that you are viewed, your story of origin. And whereas the blacks in America did not create their story of origin, nor did they modify their story of origin, they're viewed relatively poorly. And this is a reference point that hateful persons always reach back to. Oppositely, the Jews, those who call themselves Jews today and live in Israel, they have created their narrative.
You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken, okay? It's that simple. Just like my last name, Brown, doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false.
The Jews, those who call themselves Jews today and live in Israel, they have created their narrative.
Learn how to play ball. That's what the Zionists did, except instead of a baseball team, they went to try to convince the Jews that the Jewish people are a nation, like France and like Spain. We'll get a land, that's Israel, that's our stadium. We'll get baseball bats and balls, we'll create a language. They sat down to create a language because nations need languages.
The Jews, those who call themselves Jews today and live in Israel, they have created their narrative.
Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that, right? Now, you might ask yourself, why is it illegal to obtain this in the state of Israel? Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel. But according to Israeli law, the fact that I have Jewish blood gives me more right to somebody's home and land in the land of Palestine than somebody that has been there for hundreds of years. Doesn't make sense.
There are Ashkenazi Jews who are entirely European in their DNA. That's why you're not allowed to have a DNA test in Israel, because it will reveal that virtually none of them are Semitic, virtually none of them have any ancestral connection to the land. I was viciously assaulted by a manager in the BBC who had recently converted to Judaism. It's fine. I love all religions. But you can't say I've now converted to Judaism and therefore I have a right to go to the land of Palestine and live in the house of someone whose ancestors have been living in it for thousands of years.
Well, joining us for our weekly segment, Bottom Line, is Allgemeiner CEO David Efune. So, David, let's jump right in. Genetically speaking, are Jews white?
Well, Natasha, it's important to understand, firstly, the intense sensitivity that this question has for the Jewish community. And actually, it's coming up at a personally very relevant time for me. Today is the anniversary of the passing of my great-grandfather, David Weinstock, who was arrested by the Nazis in Vienna in September 1939. And he was taken to the anthropological department at the Vienna Museum of Natural History, and he was subjected to, together with 440 other Jews, to degrading tests and measurements because he was considered by the Nazis to be of an inferior race. So it really is the height of irony and insult that when Jews express concern about anti-Semitism being ignored and a blindness to anti-Semitism, they're then lumped into the white category.
There is something special about you, Judah. There is something special about you, Israel, or Yashara'al. When I say Judah, Yahawadah. That is the ancient pronunciation of the word. There is something special about you, Judah. Yahweh only spoke to you, to us, as a nation. And he spoke to no other nation. That's why we are supposed to be what? That light. We're Yah's chosen supposed to be the nation that's teaching the nations, not the nations teaching us.
Lion of Judah come upon the earth, bringing unquenchable fire. All the tribes of Israel and the believers stand in power. Speak with authority, worship uncontrollably. There's something about you, Judah. Fire upon the kingdom of darkness. We may suffer for a little while, but joy cometh in the morning.
Judah special, no wonder we were a chosen vessel. In and out of captivity, weaving like a pretzel. Messiah come through the tribe, clean out the bloodline. We disciples, so put us up on the front line. Face to face with crime, cause we ain't scared to grind. When you connect the divine, we stay pressed for time. Evangelize, can define, put us in prison in. Worship first, can we always invite the spirit in. Cause revival through a pen, stacking souls in empty bins. Joe in the morning, this a warning, you will never win. Fire upon the head of the serpent, he next tail chirping. It's too late cause your tail's already burning. I don't want your riches, gotta match you with gold streets. Movers all around me, the light shine, no police. The living used to be deceased, resurrected to a feast. Nothing like being in peace at the table with the meat.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.